Texas decided, yep, they're going to display the 10 Commandments in every public school classroom across the state of Texas.
All right.
Asking teachers to be theologians. We're asking teachers to display the 10 Commandments.
You know how important the 10 Commandments are to me, and you know how important my faith is to me, and we have an honest disagreement about the role of the government in this kind of policy. So I just want to have a conversation about that. The First Amendment forbids the government from establishing a state religion. Is that something we can both acknowledge and agree to?
I will agree with the fact that we don't want government telling religion what to do.
Do you believe religious instruction for children is the job of parents and pastors or government employees?
Again, we're just talking about a display of the 10 Commandments here.
So I think the only reason politicians in this body would be micromanaging what posters are put up in a classroom is if we want children to read the posters. Would you be comfortable with adding language requiring parental consent from all the parents of students in the classroom before putting up a religious document on the walls of the classroom?
No, I would not.
So you're against parents having a say in their students' religious instruction?
I'm against that proposed amendment, yes. I think that we need to return to the foundational truths.
How do you think it makes a Hindu student feel to have a poster in every classroom that says, "Thou shalt not worship any god before me"?
Again, if they have come to the United States and they are living here, they're born here, they're citizens, then they would probably enjoy celebrating what made our forefathers so different from every other nation in the world.
David, I'm sure, has some thoughts on it. Again, you know, they dust off this 10 Commandments thing every so often, but they may have met their moment where they can push this through. David, I give us maybe a second or two on what's happening in Texas with the 10 Commandments.
Well, you know, there was years ago, the Bill of Rights was introduced in the Texas legislature with a resolution denouncing it as communist propaganda, and the Texas legislature.
It was denounced as propaganda. Is that what you said?
Yeah, as communist propaganda,
Okay.
and the Texas legislature passed the resolution. So, you know, we've always had legislatures full of people who are idiots, and Texas just happens to be one of the leading sources of this. I'm not sure with this Supreme Court what would happen here. The Supreme Court we have right now is very problematic. So I don't know. This is absolutely improper, and the lawmaker who was challenging this raised the right question. What if you're Hindu or atheist or anything else? And there is without a doubt a serious effort here to impose a version of Christianity on the American people despite the Constitution. And we have appointees who have no idea what's in the Constitution, much less what's in the Bible. And by the way, if we're going to start posting Bible passages, well, let's go back to the opening episode of The West Wing, selling daughters, executing people for using two different fabrics in cloth, stoning people to death for working on Sunday.
Ancient document written by ancient guys, right?
Yes, and not one word in the New Testament written by anybody who actually knew Jesus, who I'm sure that most American Christians would be shocked if he did come back, because he's not blonde, he's not white, he doesn't have blue eyes. But you know, what all this is a diversion from dealing with the real issues in this country, which are that we are failing to educate our young people. We have a cohort of children now who are used to quick, immediate gratification of the kind you get from TikTok. I just gave a talk this morning at the local Jewish community center, and people stayed for 2 hours after the talk to keep talking. And one of the things that was discussed a lot, because some of the 50 or 60 people who came were teachers or professors, was this serious decline in fundamental educational standards and knowledge. And we're falling behind the rest of the world. I mentioned on the show before that when I taught at Syracuse Law, my students who came from China were just so far beyond my American students. And the ones who had gone to school in France, Norway, the Netherlands, South Korea, and Japan, similarly, they're just in a whole nother class. And we're worried about putting up, you know, this nonsense about the 10 Commandments.
You're right. We
which
are
are which are offensive to some people.
The distractions do seize the news cycle, and as you say, I mean, they're legitimately offensive in many ways. But you're right; they seize attention such that they're a distraction from the horror show that is going on.
I mean, we're not funding public education at an adequate level to do the job we have. Years ago, I wrote in I think my first book 33 years ago about how Baltimore County and Maryland gave $400 million to Art Modell to bring the Cleveland football team to Baltimore and rename it the Ravens. And they did so at a time when there were children in the Baltimore schools with science textbooks that said, quote, "Someday man will walk on the moon," which had happened in 1969.
Wow.
You sort of can't make up this complete loss of fundamentals and basics. And people like the woman lawmaker whose name I didn't catch, who live in this world of, well, this is the way I think it should be, and therefore that's how it's going to have to be, which is just childish. That's what children do. What they wish to be true should be true.
Yeah, I think her name is Candy Noble in Texas. It's well,
neither sweet nor noble.
Neither sweet nor noble. And as you say, we're seeing this now, and we've seen it in so many of these fundamentalist countries where a bulk of the population learns the Quran, let's say, and they know the Quran and they read the Quran every day. But the rest of science, the rest of history, it all is denied by the complete focus on the religious study. And you hate to see us in any way, edging toward that, which, as you say, even if it just takes funding away from those things like science and history, it's a bad thing. I want to ask you about, go ahead, please.
Well, just, imagine what would happen if instead we took a secular approach to this and said, we're going to post just a set of moral values on the wall that aren't religious. Be nice to other children. Respect your elders. Wash your hands so that you don't spread disease to other people, and don't cough on them. Why do I think that wouldn't gain popular support among the right-wing Republicans in this country?
Yeah, it's well, and very last thing I would say is, if you look at the Ten Commandments, first of all, who's going to explain adultery to the second grader?
Yeah, right.
The first three commandments, I think, are all, I'm the God. The second one is don't have any other God. Remember, I'm the God. And the third one is, respect the Sabbath day and keep it holy. It's all these things that are, as you say, not applicable in the ways that you've just described, like a code of conduct or anything that would improve their lives. It's so...
Yeah, I mean, all ancient religions essentially taught the same thing, which was, be kind to other people. Rabbi Hillel said 2,000 years ago, something along the lines of, your duty is to treat other people the way you would treat yourself. Everything else is just
commentary, I think you said.
The commentary. Yeah. Now go study.
Yeah, right. It's the kind of the golden rule.
Any argument about teaching fundamental moral values, which would include, pay attention to your schoolwork and be serious. But that's not what we're having pushed. And it's being pushed by people who, all you have to do is listen to Candy Noble's answers, and you realize, this is not a deeply thoughtful or educated person.
Well, David, I have a Lord and Savior, and it's Donald J. Trump, and he had a big cryptocurrency dinner. We're kind of now learning the identity of some of these folks who were part of his dinner. And by the way, many of them were not happy, David. I mean, one guy who was happy is Donald Trump, who scooted in and scooted out. It was apparently... Again, there was a 25-year-old social media influencer, a car enthusiast, I think a twice indicted crypto bro. These were the top-tier VIP attendees, the top 25 holders of this Trump meme coin. They spent $4.8 million, did one of them, to sit on the front
one spent,
three tables.
I think, $37 million. I think one of them spent 36 or $37 million. This is just monetizing the presidency. No one has ever done this before Donald Trump. You do it when you leave office. Ronald Reagan left the White House and immediately went and gave a speech in Japan for $2 million. And people were shocked and upset at him for doing this, but he went and did it. Bill Clinton left the White House basically broke, immediately sold a book that brought him like $30 million. Because it sold enough copies. That's where it came from, the royalties from this. But you don't do it while you're in office. And that's what Trump is doing. He is selling access to the White House, and he does it the way Donald does it. Oh, yeah, you paid $36 million. Well, I'll come in the room and wave to you and not even shoot a picture with you and go. By the way, I get emails every day from Donald telling me, I want your opinion, and I want to fly you to Mar-a-Lago to talk to me. And it's all nonsense. But there are millions of idiots in America who believe that, Donald really wants to talk to them.
He flew in on a helicopter. Apparently, it was visible deliberately, I'm sure.
A U.S. government taxpayer financed helicopter.
Well, it's funny you say that because he may have violated the law. There is a law about using the presidential seal, and he addressed his crypto investors from behind the presidential seal. Yeah.
After the White House spokesperson, Carolyn Leavitt, said, this is not an official act of the president. This is him on his personal time. I didn't know presidents had personal time, but okay. So he has no protections, no immunities from this. Let's see now, who could prosecute him? Oh, Pam Bondi, the corrupt Florida lawyer who is his attorney general and lapdog. Yeah, right. That's not going to happen.
394 million in total, as you've noted.
Yeah,
that's
the gross take.
Right.
We don't know how much of it Donald got, but in all likelihood, probably north of $300 million. And this is, the airplane, the $400 million airplane, which is, by the way, as I've described it, it's a white elephant airplane. Fixing it up is going to cost $1 billion to make it suitable for Air Force One. And you have to have two of them at all times, because if something goes wrong with one, you need the other. Well, you only got one plane. And I don't know how many people in the audience know this, but I think it's very significant. Donald said, and there's a video of him, well, they came to me and they said, we want to give this to you because we think you're such a great president. And in fact, Donald was out there soliciting airplanes in the Middle East. He had his negotiator soliciting these gifts, which they're fundamentally extortion.
Well, Pete Hegseth has said, David, that he's okay. Pentagon's going to take on the plane. And so we, the American taxpayer, we're buying that plane for Donald Trump, in a sense, aren't we? We're doing those things that you described. We're going to
spend $1 billion to fix it up, and it's going to take a couple of years. But he really wants that for after he leaves. So the game, assuming he leaves, which is not at all certain in 2029, but I think the game will be to actually go slow on that plane so that they can turn it over to him when he leaves office with all that luxury nonsense. And by the way, it turns out that the Qataris have been trying to get rid of this plane for some time.
Yeah.
So
just the wrap on the crypto dinner and on crypto generally. You've written about economics, and you've written extensively on tax and economics and the U.S. economy. And I think of the dollar and how it's undermined by a lot of this crypto, and by the U.S. government buying so much of the crypto in a crypto reserve kind of way. I mean, I see these things as undermining the interests of the U.S., while obviously buoying the interests of the president.
Oh, they absolutely undermine the interests of the U.S. They diminish us on the world stage with people who are serious. And more importantly, what you're seeing going on is a growing movement to use real money to buy fake money. People say, oh, there's nothing backing the U.S. dollar. Yes, there is. There's the good faith and credit of the U.S. and the fact that dollars must be accepted by the government in the U.S. But crypto, it's just air. There's nothing of any substance there. And why did we get crypto? Well, it was a way for drug traffickers and corruptors of foreign governments and terrorists to move money around in what used to be untraceable. The FBI has clearly figured out, along with Treasury's FinCEN operation, how to track this money, so it's non-anonymous anymore. And notice Donald pardoned the Silk Road guy who was using crypto to help terrorists and drug traffickers all over the world. He's pardoned other drug traffickers. He's pardoned violent criminals who attacked law enforcement. And, you know, we need to recognize what we have. Donald is a pro-criminal president as long as you're his kind of criminal.
Well, that's exactly right. You know, just to segue, by the way, many who attended the dinner were really disappointed, as I've alluded to. They couldn't get their selfies with Trump. That's what they wanted. The food was bad. I mean, there was a lot of sort of rancorous chatter about how much money they'd spent and how little they got. I mean, after this dinner was over, you know, they felt really ripped off. Not, if you've read any of David K. Johnston's stuff, the first time someone who's done business with Trump has felt ripped off. But to the point, Donald just, I call him Donald now because you call him Donald.
Good.
Donald Trump he just issued a pardon based on, it was essentially, as you say, it was a mother petitioning. A mother had provided so much money to Trump and also trying to expose the Biden crime family, in quotes,
right,
that Trump actually issued a pardon for the mother's son. And this was a complete, as you say, pay-to-play kind of situation.
Oh, yeah.
Enabled by this world of crypto.
Yeah, pardons are for sale under this administration as long as you meet the right requirements. You know, don't be a black or Muslim or an immigrant unless you're very rich and want to do Donald's work. And we're seeing, you know, open criminality. Now, Speaker Mike Johnston, who is a lawyer, said the other day that these things Trump is doing can't be crimes because he's talking about them openly. That's a novel theory of criminal justice. And I tell you that as a professor who teaches criminal justice.
Well, and he also said, look, I didn't know anything about the dinner. I was a little busy this past week. That's what Mike Johnston said. You know, there's the irony here is so rich because of the way in which they were on a jihad against the Biden crime family, the Hunter Biden and the rest of the Biden family trading on the name, sort of trading on the power of the presidency. And here it's right out front. And
Trump is in the process of getting multi-billion-dollar investments that will have the Trump name on them from the Middle East. His sons are out making business deals with governments who need the help and in some cases protection of the U.S. military. And all of this is doing violence to our Constitution. The problem is who's going to hold him accountable. And I just got an email minutes before the show today, you know, from someone about why are you going on the air and lying all the time about Donald Trump? I mean, God sent Donald Trump to save America, and how dare you align yourself with the evil forces that are trying to. And there's no rational discussion with people like this. And by the way, this person could write the King's English, so they're not dumb.
Sure.
You know, it wasn't full of typos and bad grammar. But you know, we're in a real crisis. We're seeing the U.S. in serious fundamental decline. Our liberties are all in danger. There was a video I watched earlier today in my Facebook feed. A woman from Australia arrives here to be with her husband, who's Canadian, on vacation. And they held her in prison overnight in Honolulu and deported her to Australia because she had too many clothes, they said, in her suitcase, and therefore planned to overstay her visa. That was their evidence. She had too many clothes for the length of her trip. Well, you may recall a couple of weeks ago, 2 German tourists, young women in their 20s, were arrested, held in jail, and deported because they had too few clothes in their suitcases and they didn't have hotel reservations for every night they were here. Never mind that they came here to walk the Appalachian Trail. So, of course, they wouldn't have reservations for most of the nights they were going to be here. And by the way, don't miss that Donald claimed there were all these millions of murderers and rapists and crazy people. That's not who they're arresting. And they're deporting fewer people, arresting fewer people, in fact, than Biden was a year ago, about 1 a day fewer. But it is fewer. And the reason they're not going after all these supposed murderers and rapists and other serious criminals is that's not who was coming into the country. That's Donald's made up lie. The people who came here are strivers. They came here just like your ancestors and mine and those of people watching, unless they're indigenous peoples. They came here for a better life. They work hard. And Donald wants to sell you for $5 million, a Become an American card, the gold card. Apparently, very little interest in this, according to lawyers who work in this field. It's too much money. You'd have to be at least worth $50 million to justify $5 million, which may not get you anything at the end of the day, and they're certainly not going to give you back your $5 million.
We had the story last, just before you came on, maybe about 15 minutes before you came on, I did the story about record numbers of Americans trying to get into England.
Yes.
And they've had a remarkable rush of Americans trying to get citizenship there. And that's, of course, the case also in Portugal and Costa Rica and around the world. There's
in Norway, Canada, etc. And there are brokers out there now who will teach you, well, here's where you can move to and why and what it will cost you to go do it. A whole business created. I don't find that to be a satisfactory solution to what's going on.
No,
That's
of course
just running away.
Yeah.
And I think the comparison that a few people have written to me about saying, you need to not be like the Jews who didn't leave Europe when Hitler arose. This is not the same as that. There are parallels, but it's not the same. What people need to do is be citizens, stand up, push for what's right, reach out to lawmakers, get other people to vote. You can't just passively turn your government over to other people, or it won't be anything like what we have enjoyed for the last almost 250 years.
I mean, it's true that this is a kind of mafia that has taken over government now.
Yes.
And
I
mean, Trump's clearly mobster-like.
Trump is the head of is the third generation head of a 4-generation white collar crime family. They historically and in business, they steal from you not by breaking legs and burning down your building or breaking your windows. They do it through broken promises and contracts they don't intend to honor. Now that he's got these powers, it's very clear that ICE has been told they can manhandle people. They can go out in the streets in mufti without any identification. They can denigrate people. One of the consistent reports that's coming out about people who've been arrested is this humiliation of people that has been authorized. And now they have this bill that passed by the House, gone to the Senate, that federal judges basically cannot use contempt citations to enforce their orders.
This is very important. This last thing that David said, David, you should that snuck into this big beautiful bill thing that they just passed in the House.
Yeah,
and it's
in the middle of all this, Mark, in the middle of all this, the Republicans keep saying we're spending too much money, we can't afford these things, and yet they want to borrow trillions of dollars to help people like Elon Musk and Larry Ellison and Michael Bloomberg, although he doesn't support Trump, pay less in taxes. This is completely incoherent. But the many people have been persuaded that if their boss doesn't get a tax cut, they will lose their job. And it doesn't matter that it's utter nonsense. And they also want to push all of this privatization. Elon Musk has shut down all the folks who were investigating him for flagrant violation of his many federal contracts, not fulfilling the terms of his contracts. At the same time, they want to do even more of this. There is a proposal from Blackwater to build what I would call concentration camps, but camps to hold people they want to deport on military bases. And this administration has literally told the Supreme Court that they have the authority to deport American citizens. There's no way the U.S. Supreme Court is going to support that, but that doesn't mean they won't do it. And then their position, if they have, is, well, there's nothing we can do. We took Mark Thompson and we put him in that death camp in El Salvador, and nothing we can do. What do you want us to invade the country to get him back? It's amazing how they're all powerful and then they're all weakness.
Well, I've said it, sadly, David, I've said it repeatedly. He's not coming back. He is a cause celeb, reminds everyone of the mistake the administration made. And there's just, sadly, he's not, it's an abomination, but he's not coming back. I want to ask you about Ukraine and Russia and the change in that. I know
no, go ahead. We'll do this one.
Okay, real quick, if you would, just because the nature of that confrontation may have changed. And now even Trump is saying that Putin's gone absolutely crazy, et cetera. But the craziness, and that was prompted by the fact that missiles are landing in Ukraine in ways and in barrages that they hadn't prior in recent months. Could you speak to the change in this?
Yeah. So first of all, if you study Russian military behavior all the way back to the czars, they've never paid any attention to the rules of war. Other people followed, which change over time, followed rules of war. The Russians don't do that. Russians have never seen anything wrong with bombing an obstetrics hospital or a school to kill children. And we're seeing that right now. Donald Trump, you'll recall, promised he would settle the war in one day. He said, I don't even have to be sworn in. I just have to win the election and I can settle this in one day. And Putin is showing, what a fool he is on that. So Trump, when cornered, is feral. He's like a cornered animal, and he will reach out and strike out in whatever way is necessary. And if that means he has to support in some way helping Zelensky, he will do that if it's in his interests. How far he'll push that, I don't know, but he's been played brilliantly by Putin. Putin understands how to flatter Donald. In every negotiation I ever had with Donald, I always got what I wanted because I knew I would think about how to flatter him and make him forget, how much he was angry at me about whatever. And then oh yeah, well, sure. No, yeah, I'll make that available, or I'll make that person available. Yeah. And so Trump is now in the problem he has is it's been 25, 30 days. He's gotten nowhere. It is showing how weak he is. And make no mistake, Donald Trump is weak. He puffs himself up, but he is weak. And he doesn't know what to do because he has no understanding of the historical, geopolitical, economic issues that are here. But I think you're going to see him distance himself from Putin, and Putin is going to step up to the extent he can the attacks. Now, his military is decimated. They're being forced to bring food and weapons to the front with donkey carts. And one of the Russian ministers actually said, well, armies have been using donkey carts since Roman times. Yeah, right.
You're talking about spin. Yeah.
And so Trump has got to find some way to salvage his position, or he's exposed as the emperor who has no clothes to everyone. I don't know how he's going to do that, but he will do whatever he needs. And if that includes turning on Putin in a way he never has, he'll do that. And presumably at some point, Putin and his crowd will remind Trump of what they did in early 2017. Ambassador Kislyak sent an uncoded, that is insecure cable to Moscow that read carefully says, we've told Trump, hey, pal, don't mess with us because we got stuff on you.
Wow.
We don't know what it was or anything else, but it was a clear shot across Trump's bow to send a signal to him that they could make life unhappy for him.
It's what's been hinted at for so long. I mean, because otherwise it's inexplicable, his allegiance to Putin.
And we have no reason, no idea what it is the Russians have. My guess is it would be both financial and stupid remarks that he's made that they've got tape of, not the more gritty things some people would like to see. But Trump may find himself in serious trouble here if he cannot bring about some resolution of this war. And Zelensky right now is playing this perfectly. He's making all the right statements and moves. So Donald is sort of boxed in on both sides.
This is to be continued for sure. David, thanks for staying overtime with us. We'll talk to you next week. David K. Johnston, everybody.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.